there are instances where even after meticulous planning, things don't go as expected, as planned for, and that leads to reconsiderations in strategy. So this brings me to my next topic that many edtech founders grapple with on their journey to finding product market fit, the marketing pivot. Could you talk a little bit about what exactly a marketing pivot is, how frequently you see startups encounter the need for one, and when would the optimal time to be reconsidering and adapting your marketing strategies in light of market feedback?
Sure. So a marketing pivot is when you decide that one direction or plan of action that you've taken with your marketing activities isn't working and you want to change course. Maybe you want to either stop that particular action and really take a different direction, or maybe you want to lighten up on the investment and put that investment into something else. And so I'd say that in many B2B businesses, marketing actions taken in Q1, they might not show any return until the next quarter. And that is sometimes surprising for sales teams to understand that I launched something today. Why don't I see an impact or movement in 1 to 2 weeks? And the reason that it takes longer is because there are many more interactions and touch points before a buyer will show interest or be ready to take the next step in the sales cycle. And sometimes what helps is to tie these marketing tactics together in a campaign or a program. So have a series of marketing actions that are connected, that are designed to move that buyer along the journey and really inspire or motivate them to take that next step in the sales cycle. Keep in mind, the longer the sales cycle, sometimes the longer it takes for marketing actions to show a return. But that doesn't mean that we can't look for early signals to determine if actions are actually doing what we want them to do. So I'd say the team should experiment. They should look for feedback signals as early as they can. And once you identify those activities that you deploy, figure out what the target metrics are and what you define as success. Then set a cadence for reviewing those metrics at least weekly. I'd say that if you're deploying activities on social media, for example, whether that's LinkedIn in the case of B2B, or it could be Instagram for B2C, you'll know usually within your first week or two if you're actually gaining that traction or gaining the engagement of your target audience. And then you can decide if you want to continue in that manner, especially if you're using paid media to support those activities, or if you want to try something else. So, as an example, maybe you run a paid media campaign whereby you're advertising on LinkedIn, you're running Google ads, maybe you're paying for ads in a digital publication as well. You can generally tell within those first 2 to 3 weeks if you're getting the traction that you want, or if you're getting the downloads of a particular content piece. And then you can make a decision right away if you want to divert your money away from one of those platforms to another. Conversely, if your tactic is to spend money because you want to host an event or set up a booth at a conference, it could take you months before you know if that conference is actually a worthwhile use of marketing investment. And that's because the customer or the prospect that comes to that conference, they might just be in those initial phases of their search for a solution. And they'll want additional conversations. They may want an additional trial or demo to determine if they want to move forward. And so it can take a little bit more time to determine if that was the right use of marketing money. So pivots can be quite different depending on the tactic, but it's really important to align on what those metrics are, what you expect from them, and then set a plan to monitor those metrics as regularly as you can to determine if you need to make a change.
A follow-up question on that. You talked about when you sometimes have this delayed results from when you launch a marketing campaign, especially in the case of B2B, that could be a quarter or longer. You should look for early signals. What are those kind of early signals when you're waiting on results, perhaps for the next quarter?
I'd say the early signals can be looking at additional tactics that you've run alongside this larger tactic. And this is why I'd say that it's important to tie tactics together into a marketing program or a marketing campaign. So I would not advise companies to say, we're just going to create a few posts on social media and we're not going to do anything else. It's really important to have multiple elements of your marketing plan or actioning at the same time. And that way you can start to determine, am I getting traction because I have made a post or I've posted an article on my company's LinkedIn page? I've diverted them to the website, and now I can see if there's any activity on the website. And sometimes that means taking a look at how many visits, how much engagement have you had on the site? How many downloads have you had of a particular asset? Again, similar web is a great way to determine, what is that engagement on your site? Are people really attaching themselves to your content? Are they showing interest in the messaging that you have on your site? So I'd say web traffic can be a really good early indicator. Social media engagement, as long as you are active and regularly posting on social media. If you do have a business development team, so maybe you have business development representatives or lead development representatives, they can also give you really early signals as to whether your marketing activities are working, because they can test out with those prospects specific messages, specific assets. They can ask, where have they heard about the company or about the product? And that can give you some early signals as to whether the things you're putting out there are actually starting to stick.